Hey guys, welcome to my garage. Well, actually today we will be in front of my garage. Even though it's getting cold, I need to fix an issue on my wife's Volvo S60. Let me show you. As you can see, the car is locked, but I still can open the door on this side. So this is due to a faulty lock which is in here, and apparently this is a pretty common issue on these cars. Actually, I think Volvo did also a recall to get this fixed. So once I found out what's the issue, I called up a local junkyard, and also I went online to try and search for some used parts. The prices were ranging from 30 to 40 euros, which I thought is a fair price. So I decided I'm going to go there and pick up the part. But just before that, I looked up the exact part number just to be sure I'm buying the right thing, and to my surprise I was actually able to find a brand new part for 20 euros. So this is a brand new aftermarket lock. Obviously it's not original Volvo, but I mean this should work just perfectly, and it was even cheaper than the parts from the junkyard. This was actually an eye-opener for me. I mean, I'm not saying that the parts from the junkyard were that expensive. It's just that these replacement parts, these aftermarket parts, are so cheap that it doesn't even make sense to consider used parts at this price point. So anyway, it's getting pretty cold, and replacing this lock on this car isn't really simple, but let me get to it and I will talk you through it. So I'll start by removing the door panel, and to do that I need to remove two Torx 25 screws underneath the door handle. Then with this plastic pry tool I just need to clip out all the clips from behind. Now the top is also just clipped on, so just don't worry and pull it hard. This yellow hanger slides off easily, and then all it remains is to disconnect the little speaker and the power window switch. Then I also need to remove this door handle cable. So once the door liner is removed, on most cars, then actually you would get a pretty good access to the lock, and all you would really have to do is remove these three screws, reach in and replace the lock. Unfortunately, it's not as easy on this particular car, because I need to remove this whole insider door panel, and to do that I also need to remove the window and the handle. So I'm using the window switch on the driver's side so that I align the window correctly, so when we look into this hole we can see the little clip that we need to press with the screwdriver. Now once the window is about 10 to 12 centimeters from the bottom, we can see this yellow clip that we need to press with the screwdriver, and at the same time I'm pulling the window upwards. Then I'm using this suction cup to basically lock the window in place to not let it slide down. As a next step I need to remove the door handle, and there's an access hole right behind this rubber seal. I will need this long Torx 25, and I will start just simply unscrewing for a couple of turns. Then I can remove the little plastic cover, and while pulling the handle outside I'll keep unscrewing the screw until it locks in, which will then lock in the door handle so that it doesn't jump back. Now I just pull the door handle towards the back and it comes right out. Don't forget to unscrew this little screw. Now I just unscrew this inside door panel with a 7mm socket, and once that's done I should be able to wiggle out this inside panel together with the door locks. As you can see, it was quite a struggle. I mean, let me tell you that this is possibly the worst door I ever had to take apart. It's just so unnecessarily complicated that I don't even know what they were thinking. So at this point I come up with an idea that I will separate this plastic that is holding the lock and handle from the big piece of inside the door plastic. I thought that reinstalling it this way will be easier. However, I just couldn't then click back the two plastic pieces together once it was on the door. So if you'll get the same bright idea as me, save yourself the headache. It's not easier at all. So to remove this lock, I only need to remove this one screw. Part of the replacement process is to transfer these push-pull cables to the new lock. Removing them wasn't too difficult, and reinstalling them on the new lock wouldn't be either, if I wouldn't be forcing it and screw it up big time. Okay, that's not good. I just broke the end of this hook. Now this took me about 2 hours of trying to figure out how to sort this. I bent up a new hook from a nail and then tried connecting it onto the steel wire with wire clip. But that wasn't too strong, so I decided I will try to brace the wire onto the nail hook. Well, that didn't work out either, as the wire is probably stainless steel and I didn't have the correct bracing wire. Okay, so I spent about 2 hours trying to fix this, and the bracing apparently didn't work, so this is what I come up with. I used this round wire connector, which I crimped onto the push-pull wire, mounted it with M3 screws, and it seemed to hold just fine. So obviously this is not perfect, but I think this will hold, and yeah, this will just have to work. Thankfully, rest of the reassembly went without any further issues. Okay, so this was a pain, but it's mainly by my mistake. This is now reassembled. It's all working fine. I hope it will hold and it will not fall apart. We will see. But anyway, now the next step is to install it in the car and then put on back the other cover, and then hopefully everything should work fine. Now the weather has got a bit worse or nicer, depending on how you look at it. But I have to get this done anyway, so let's get to it. Now, as I mentioned, I'm reassembling it here with the handle and the door lock separated from the whole plastic door liner. To be fair, this was much simpler than trying to align everything together. Anyway, to reinstall the door handle, you just click it back to place, put back the plastic cap, and all you need to do is screw in the T25 screw until it is tight. Then just reinstall the screws into the door lock. And now finally here I'm struggling to reinstall the door panel, as I just can't get it to click with the door handle plastic piece. Okay guys, so it's actually the next day. Yesterday I was struggling to reinstall the door. It was snowing on my head, so I just decided to call it a day. I was just too frustrated to push through. Now before doing so though, I have tried to lock the car, and to my surprise the lock is still not working. So at this point I'm bummed. I don't know really what's the issue. Let me show you. I unlock the car and the indicators are indicating that it's open, but once I close it there are no indication, and I think it was blinking before. So all the other doors are closed. When I try it, they are closed, but this one is still opening even with the new door lock. Now that can mean just one simple thing. Whatever the issue is, it's not the door lock itself. It could be some wiring, or I'm also thinking that it could be this module. So now I need to figure out what is really the cause here. So when I unlock the car, I can hear and feel here the motor running, and also I can hear a relay clicking in this box. But when I lock it, I can hear a relay here, but the motor, it's like not doing anything here. Now to me this looks like if the car is thinking that the rear door is not closed, and that's why it's not locking it. So it could be there's some door sensor which is not working correctly. But I would think then I should see an open door signalization on the dash. But as you can see, there is no signalization of open door. So when I open the driver's door, it's working just fine. Let me open the rear one. And now it's showing that the rear door is open too. So this makes me think it can't be the door sensor, because the car apparently knows when the door is open or closed. So this could be some cabling issue, and that's the worst one to find, but we have to do it somehow. So I'm going to remove this panel once again, and I'll try and check the oxidation on all the connectors, maybe look for broken wires. Hopefully we find something. As you can see, I was able to remove this panel with the door lock and handle still in place. This wouldn't be normally possible. So there's nothing wrong to the connector, to the door lock itself. I mean, there is no oxidation. The cables look without any issue. I mean, there is no weird nick. I also checked the door connector, and those are not oxidized either. And yeah, it seems to be alright. Don't really see anything weird here. Nothing major that should be causing this. So I decided to take apart the door module just to see if there is anything obvious. I didn't see anything, but just to be sure, I cleaned up the pins with a wire brush. Even though I wanted to avoid this, as the next step in diagnosing the issue, I decided to disassemble the rear passenger side door and use the module that I know is working. With this, I will be able to rule out if the other module is the issue or if I need to keep searching. Okay, so at this point we know that the module is faulty. I reassembled the other door, that's working now fine. So now I looked up this module on internet. I couldn't find any new, or well, I could probably order them from Volvo, but I couldn't find any aftermarket modules, and the used ones were about 20-30 euros, which is essentially a good price, but I don't know if that module will be good. And also, I don't know if it's not going to develop the same fault in, I don't know, a month or so. So I'm going to try and repair this existing module. So let's have a look into that. Okay, I've been looking at this for a while now, just trying to figure out how this works or what is the issue really here. So let me try and talk you through what I think is going on. First of all, there's not too many components. There's some chips, some capacitors, and 3 relays. And obviously my suspicion right away was that, one of the relays must have failed and it's not working properly. So I looked up the part number, and I found out that this is kind of an interesting relay. It has actually 2 relays inside. It has 2 coils and 2 pairs of contacts. And this is specially made relay for motors and for locks in cars, because it's made in a way that whenever you put voltage on either of the coils, the motor goes either up or down, or closes or opens the lock. I mean, I've been looking at the PCB, and from what I can see now is that these big pins will be likely the power inputs, and one of them, which is connected to most of the surface, will be likely the ground. Then the second one will be plus 12 volts. And now one of the relays, this one, is connected to these pins. So these are the output pins for this relay. And this second relay, you can see it here, it's going to these bottom 2 pins, to the smaller ones. This is used also for power window regulation, and the motor for power windows has a bigger current rating. So I'm suspecting that these 2 will be for the power window. So this relay is likely for the power window, which was working fine. And then these 2 smaller ones and this second relay will be then the relay for the lock. So we will go ahead and try and test these relays. I will connect up a multimeter to these pins, and we will try and put on 12 volts on the coils and see if the relay is closing and opening as it should. Okay, so here's just a multimeter setup for beeping, and we know that then this pin is the ground connection, which is coming from the car. So I'll just connect this one here, and from the data sheet we know that whenever both of the relays are off inside this little cube, then both of the pins should be connected to ground. So if I test this one and this one, both of them are beeping, so this looks okay. And I'm going to test the second relay now, which are these 2 pins. Both of them are beeping correctly. Now, the second pin is the plus 12 volts, okay? And with this, as the relays are off, none of these should be beeping, right? None of them are beeping, so that's correct. Okay, so the next step will be to try and activate the relays. And I'm going to use these 2 leads with the 12 volt power supply, so I can supply the DC power voltage to the coil. Okay, so on these test pins I have now 12 volts. I'll try and activate first relay. Okay, can hear it beeping. Okay, let me try the second one. Let's go to this lead, and now the second relay should be activating it. This one. This looks correct. Let's try now this second one, which I think is the one which is used for the lock because it has the smaller pins. So let me connect here. So this is the coil one. Okay, and here. Okay. It seems, not sure you can hear it, but the relay is clicking and the multimeter beeps only sometimes. So it seems there's some intermittent fault. Let's try this other one. Okay, and the opening side seems to be working fine. So interestingly enough, the relay seems to be still clicking, because I could hear it also when it was still in the car, that the box was clicking, but the lock was actually not doing anything. Let me try and check it once again if I didn't mess up anything. So this was this first. Now we can clearly hear that many times it connects, and sometimes it did a beep light. Now it would open. Okay, it's kind of, it seems it's better now. Maybe there's some dirt on those contacts. Okay, it's much better now, but I'm still gonna go ahead and replace this relay because it seems it's becoming faulty. I will need to try and order this one. Okay, so it's actually 2 weeks later now. To be honest, the module was working. I did put it back in the car because since we did run the coil a couple of times, it seems it kind of fixed the issue because, well, I think the car didn't close like once or something. But anyway, I did order replacement relays anyway, even though it seems to be working now because it was failing already. I don't want to be doing this again in, half a year's time. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace the relay now. So first I removed the epoxy coating from around the contacts. I was trying to heat up the contacts with this 120 watt Chinese soldering iron, which is more likely 50 watts in reality, so it didn't have the power to heat through these big ground connection contacts. Then I pulled out my old good transformer soldering iron, which is about 150 watts. However, I didn't have the proper tip for it, so it was also struggling to get enough heat onto those contacts. I'm not going to bore you with my suffering, but if you have a recommendation for good, powerful soldering iron which can heat big ground connection surfaces, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, I removed the relay, and after cleaning the PCB, the reinstallation of new relay went without any issues. Okay guys, so this module should be working now and we will test it in a minute, but let me show you what I managed to buy. This is the actual Bowden cable that I managed to break, and look, this is a brand new part. So this is perfect. I'm really happy that I was able to find this, and actually this was really cheap. I think I paid around 8 euros delivered, so that's perfect. And I was trying to search for this part even before I was repairing the other one, but I couldn't find anything under the Volvo. But then later on I realized that the lock is actually made by Ford, so I was trying to search on the Ford spare parts, and well, surprise, I was able to find this. So even though my repair is working just fine because we've been using the car for a couple of days, I'm still gonna be much better, replacing it with the original part. So let's go test out the lock, and then we can reinstall this new Bowden cable and finalize this. Hopefully everything will work. Okay, let's test it. I can already see the blinkers, so that's good. Yes, it's locked. Great, let's unlock. Perfect. Works as new. Perfect. Now that I know that everything is working, I need to remove this door cover again, and then the lock and the handle yet again. I'm removing the repaired Bowden cable, which seemed to work just fine, but OEM part will be better. Just confirming whether both the cables are the same length, and yet again I can't fit the hook into the lock. This lock is an aftermarket part and it seems that the hole is just too small, so I'm drilling it a bit bigger. I wish I would have done this the first time as well, so I wouldn't break the original cable hook. And just because there is never enough issues, it turns out that the ball on the other side of the Bowden cable is just slightly bigger and it doesn't fit the handle. So I had to make it smaller and sand it down. Once that was done, it all fit nicely. Anyway, now I just assembled it all together on the ground, not separating the lock portion anymore. Installing it back into the car with the lock and handle was actually easier than I anticipated. The only issue was this little white plastic pin, which is in the way, so I tried to remove it, but gave up after a while and just pushed the lock through. Once it's inside, I need to align the handle bracket and screw in the lock. Next step is to release the window and let it simply click into its place. After reinstalling the handle, everything seems to be working fine. All that's left is to reinstall the door card, reconnect all the wires and the cable for handle, and screw in the torque screws underneath the handle. Now I just test if the window is working and all seems fine. Okay, test. Lock, yep. Locked. Unlocked, perfect. Okay guys, so this one is done, it's working. I mean, usually on cars the door lock replacement takes about 30 minutes. On this one I knew it's gonna be a bit more difficult, so I thought it's gonna be like 2 hours. But yeah, here we are 2 weeks later. But yeah, most of it was due to my fault. I broke something, and also I didn't check in the first place if it's really the lock that it's broken. But anyway, if you learned something and this will help you to fix your car, then it's great. Let me know down in the comments. And with that said, thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one.